Haven is just a complete mix of every type of game: shooting, flying, vehicle, platformer, even elements of RPG. It's everything in one game.
Haven is the birth of freeform gaming, and freeform is basically something that allows the player to experience multiple gameplay genres in one package.
The story has a very sort of film-based script to it. It's very deep, it has twists.
Haven would make a great film. It's an action-adventure and there's lots of explosions and gee-whiz moments, as we call them.
Don't believe it.
Hi, I'm Atticlove, and this is Haven Call of the King. This game is just...
Well, to be perfectly frank, it's bad.
Yeah, and then some. It's not all that original either, as pretty much all of it is ripped straight from other sources, something you should notice almost immediately. Really, even the title sequence is eerily similar to something, but if you don't quite see it just yet, all you have to do is press the start button. Look familiar yet? It should, at least if you've ever played any of the Jak and Daxter games, because this is the exact same interface. No, it's not just a bit similar, it's pretty much an exact copy. Hell, even the font looks almost identical. It's absolutely shameless. That said, I am a relatively big fan of the Jak games, so maybe this could be a good sign? I mean, there are certainly worse games to get your inspirations from, so maybe I was a bit quick to judge and they actually used this framework for something interesting? No, not really. For starters, there's the story. It honestly doesn't start too badly, as the villain seems kind of interesting and there is a bit of intrigue and mystery going on, but then the actual game starts and all of that just kind of stops. There really aren't too many developments or noteworthy moments after the opening, and on top of that, what little story we do get isn't even all that good. Or original. I mean, just tell me if this reminds you of anything.
But my agent reports that one of the slaves has been having dreams.
About the voice?
Yes, sire.
Can it be done? He will join us or die.
Yep, they basically just rip off Star Wars. The main villain is nothing but a blatant copy of Vader with a dash of the Emperor mixed in, and he apparently also operates out of the Eye of Sauron because I suppose ripping off one franchise just wasn't enough. Also, while the protagonist here is by no means any sort of Luke, he is a spirited young lad stuck on a dreary mining planet, quite literally dreaming of greater things. Point being, when that producer guy said,
The story has a very sort of film-based script to it.
He certainly wasn't lying, was he? As for the main character himself, he's well, he's an idiot. His name is the same as the title of the game, Haven, and he's obviously what the entire game revolves around. He's not very interesting though, as he's essentially just one of the many slaves working and living on some kind of mining planet controlled and operated by the game's villain, Lord Vetch. What exactly are they mining for and for what purpose?
Oh!
Well, actually, I think it might have something to do with how Lord Vetch came to and upholds his power in the first place, namely the toxin he apparently spread throughout his empire. Yeah, it seems Lord Vetch somehow managed to poison the entire populace, as everyone's now forced to regularly consume these antidote ball things, apparently called katana, or they'll die. Not that the game makes any part of this at all clear, as it can barely be bothered to even mention it. Ever! Sure, there are indications that these balls must do something, as there is a number that increases whenever you pick them up, and if you pay close enough attention, you might also notice that they seem to affect this green light bar, but how much does that really tell you? All you do know is that they have nothing to do with your health, that's what the hearts are for, and your shield is powered by that blue energy, so it has nothing to do with that either. They could be currency, I suppose, if not for the fact that there aren't any shops in the game, and no one ever actually asked for these balls, so what could they possibly be for, and why can't the game just tell me? And why can you only get 79 of them? What the hell is that about? As it happens though, you can find an explanation of all of this in the game's manual, but I'm sorry, that really doesn't fix anything. There's still no in-game explanation whatsoever, and with how abundant and superfluous these things are, they genuinely bear next to no impact on pretty much 90% of the game. The only time they're even a remote factor is during the game's many rail shooter and turret sections, as you then can't really replenish your supply as easily, but that still doesn't make the system anything other than an initially confusing and ultimately entirely pointless addition. Getting back to Haven though, it seems the events of the game all kick off because of his dreams. Yup, this whole thing is all about some apparently prophetic dream this dunce cap happens to have about some voice and a bell tower or some such. It's really nothing too interesting, and it ultimately leads to an absolute non-conclusion anyway, so there's really no point in going into much more detail. Suffice it to say that Haven starts having some special dreams, and upon hearing about it, Vetch decides to find and stop him from maybe using them to possibly defeat him somehow. I guess.
Right.
Like I said, this isn't really much of a story, but I guess it's fine. Or rather, it would be if the characters and gameplay weren't so dreadful. I already mentioned that Haven is kind of an idiot, but that's honestly quite an understatement. Just as a few examples, he fails to recognize that the person he just built out of a car might not actually be too thrilled with him when he sends him through a supposed shortcut marked with these oh-so-inviting skulls. He shoots down a spaceship so close to a village that it ends up setting fire to everything, which he shows basically no remorse for, by the way, and then there's just general stupidity like this.
Don't worry. Oops, sorry. Okay, I got it this time.
5 minutes to evacuate. Attention, you have 1 minute to evacuate. You have 30 seconds to...
Stop hitting buttons, you crazy bitch! You'll kill us all!
As it happens though, Haven's not the only idiot in this adventure. What few townspeople you run into all have varying degrees of brain damage, and the enemies are generally quite moronic too. Pretty much all the bosses just involve running around in a circle until you can hit some weak point, and the few enemies that aren't just some sort of wild creature don't exactly have the most complex attack patterns either. Yeah, there are some battles that pose a bit more trouble than others, but generally speaking, the enemies are just as dumb as the protagonist. Even when they actually manage to capture Haven, which happens at 2 points in the game, they somehow manage to screw it up by having the worst, most useless prison cells ever. In one instance, they don't even bother properly locking his cell, and in the other, he actually escapes by just jumping and breaking the damn floor.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Don't I wish. This is just such piss-poor writing, as they clearly just needed Haven to end up in that cell, but then they had no idea how to get him out again. I mean, really, he just jumps? That's almost as dumb as Catwoman escaping prison by just squeezing through the bars. And thanks for reminding me of that abomination, by the way. I thought I'd blocked that out forever. Then there's Haven's, companion? Sort of girlfriend, but not really. There's the girl. She's essentially nothing more than a plot device, as she's really only utilized as a damsel in distress, when and if she's even utilized at all. For most of the game, she's not even slightly involved, hence why I can't even remember her name. I guess this is for the best though, because I don't think she'd be much help anyway, considering she's able to even think stuff like this.
Maybe it isn't on this planet.
Not on this planet? Are there other planets out there?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Are there other planets out there? Are there other planets out there? Are there other planets out there?
Oh, you are genuinely stupid. I do apologize.
Haven's weapon, the so-called mag ball, is also pretty useless. This strange little yo-yo thing might seem somewhat interesting and different at first glance, but it can barely hit anything. It's just atrociously awful. Not only does it have a ludicrously short reach, but there's no reticule or lock-on of any kind, and Haven always throws it in this weird arch, giving you next to no accuracy whatsoever. You literally can't hit an object directly in front of you even when standing still. It's ridiculous. Haven better hope he never gets a visit from Vincent and Jules, because I think we all know how that would go.
Die, you motherfucker!
The controls in this game are actually kinda trash in general. Oh, they're functional, mostly, but they just feel all wrong and janky. The camera keeps jerking all over the place and getting stuck on the scenery, you can't change or invert anything, and the vehicles have this weird stuttery and really unnatural acceleration. You do kinda have to experience it yourself to fully understand, but trust me, these controls often feel damn near broken. Weirdly enough though, this ultimately doesn't really become that much of a problem. Why? Well, because there aren't really all that many enemies or anything in most locations anyway. That's not to say that there aren't any enemy encounters, far from it, but this is still a noticeably barren universe. This is likely due to them cutting a bunch of content for the final release, which is the thing that often happens with games, but in this instance, I'm convinced it was all a result of them rushing the game out the damn door. Just think about it. This game bears a striking resemblance to not just Jak and Daxter, but specifically Jak 2, even though it predates that game by about a year. Considering this was made by Traveler's Tales though, the company responsible for Wrath of Cortex, it's not much of a stretch to assume that they somehow had some insight into Jak 2's development. After all, they must have had some connection to or at Naughty Dog, and developers were generally a lot more open and talkative with each other back then, so while I have nothing to back up this claim, I genuinely do believe that Traveler's Tales somehow knew all about Jak 2 and just wanted to beat Naughty Dog to the punch, as it were. I could be wrong, but it would kind of explain why this game feels more shoddily put together than some half-assed tie-in game.
Interesting. Indeed.
I will say this for Haven though, it is quite varied in terms of gameplay. You obviously have the standard platforming adventuring stuff, but you also get driving sections, turret and on-rail shooter sections, you get to fly around on a jetpack a couple of times, and there's even a fair bit of space shooting. It honestly is kind of impressive how many different gameplay styles they managed to cram into this one game, but unfortunately, they're all just various degrees of wank. To be fair, I guess everything is at least functional, but so many elements here are just flat out bad. Like, why can't I actually do any damage during the rail shooter and turret sections unless I'm hitting these very specific targets that only appear relatively briefly? Why is the jetpack so utterly broken and a pain to control? And why the hell is the entire enemy air and space force operated by nothing but kamikaze pilots?
Because you touch yourself at night.
I guess that final point might not have bugged me as much if not for the sheer amount of space shooting you actually end up doing. Whether you like these sections or not, there's just far too many of them, especially near the end. Not to give too much away, but pretty much the entire last third, give or take, is nothing but space and air combat. It's just endless. In addition, most of these sequences are also far too long. Sure, some are worse than others, but if I didn't know any better, I'd swear all these shooter sections were powered by Energizer or something.
They keep going and going and going and going and going.
Credit where it's due though, the space travel mechanics are honestly pretty impressive. You can literally go from the surface of one planet into space and hyperspace to reach another planet that you can then descend onto with only minimal and very seamless loading. Sure, you do usually have to collect various kinds of energy from enemies between each step, but even some modern games can't seem to come up with anything even half as smooth. It genuinely is quite remarkable. Not that any of it even begins to make up for how subpar the rest of the game is though, nor does it make the absolutely horrendous ending any better. Yeah, consider this your spoiler warning I guess, but trust me, there's not really that much to spoil. After all, this game doesn't really have an ending, or at least it doesn't have any sort of conclusion. You see, Haven will eventually make his way to this mythical tower from his dreams, as he can apparently ring the bell there to summon the return of some sort of legendary hero or some such. Supposedly, this hero will then vanquish Vetch and free all the slaves, as the power of the tower will somehow prevent Vetch from even touching him. Naturally though, things don't actually go quite that smoothly. While Haven does manage to ring said bell, he's then supposed to wait for the hero to appear within the tower, but after getting a distress call from the girl, he decides to go rescue her instead, which apparently means the hero won't return quite as triumphantly. Why? After finding and rescuing the girl, she tells Haven that there's apparently some antidote factory somewhere that could potentially provide them with enough katana to free their people from Vetch's clutches. As Haven does now have a spaceship, he and the girl take off in search of said factory, and after finding and infiltrating it, they actually seem to have succeeded in their mission. But then...
Well, you know I did have a little help.
Fool you!
Yep, it seems the girl was actually working with Vetch all along, as she has been reporting Haven's activities to him ever since Haven started dreaming. After this revelation, we of course have to go through the sequence where the girl is stunned that the villain actually turns out to be untrustworthy, again ripping off Star Wars.
We had a deal! You said you wouldn't kill him!
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Followed by that legendary hero guy actually turning up after all, only to hand himself over to Vetch without so much as a word. No really, he just shows up and surrenders as Vetch takes him back to that mythical tower for some reason, while Haven and the girl get thrown into some cells. As mentioned earlier though, Haven's cell doesn't even get locked this time, so he escapes and sets off in pursuit of Vetch. As it happens though, he might as well not have bothered, as he arrives at the tower just in time to see Vetch injecting the hero with a lethal dose of the toxin, apparently killing him. He then sets his sights on Haven, as we have ourselves what this game thinks is an epic final boss fight, but in reality it's just a mindless, boring, and incredibly anticlimactic button-mashing sequence. I'm so not kidding, the final boss is literally just a prolonged QuickTime event. It's almost as bad as the ending of the first Uncharted game. Actually, it's way worse than that, as even if you perform flawlessly here, Haven still gets his puny ass kicked. Yeah, even if you win, you still lose as Vetch overpowers Haven in the end no matter what. You literally can't win. That definitely won't piss anyone off, will it? I mean, wouldn't an unwinnable, tedious, and barely interactive final boss fight make you feel all jubilant?
Ecstatic.
For some bizarre reason though, Vetch doesn't actually kill Haven, as it seems he's now protected by the magic that was supposed to protect that hero guy, or at least that's what he claims. Just because he can't kill Haven though, that doesn't mean he can't get rid of him, as Vetch actually chains him up next to that dead hero and leaves them both to rot. He then flies off to continue his evil reign, and then the game ends. Yup, it just stops right there. Allow me to demonstrate roughly how that actually feels after playing through this entire game.
Is that it? Where's the actual sustenance? Where's the beef? Gerard, there's nothing. I've got nothing. I've got fucking nothing here. We haven't got anything. We've spent all night doing nothing.
Exactly. I mean, leaving the door open for a sequel is one thing, but here, absolutely nothing gets resolved and there's not even a remote semblance of a conclusion. Also, when you think about it, nothing whatsoever actually got accomplished here. If anything, our quote-unquote hero only managed to make things worse, as he didn't save any slaves, he got the hero of myth killed, and now both he and the girl are locked up and left for dead. Things literally would have been better if this jackass never even got involved. Now, I know there were sequels planned for this game, they actually intended to make a trilogy, but no, that doesn't excuse this atrocious non-ending. Yeah, cliffhangers are a thing, but even they usually still feature some sort of conclusion. This, on the other hand, just stops before anything of any real substance has even had the chance to happen. It's like the story was written by Dame Sally Markham.
Chapter 1. The end.
If you couldn't already tell, this game is just an awful mess. Yeah, there are some decent ideas here and there, and I suppose you've got to admire the ambition and whatnot, but the execution just isn't good. The characters are annoying idiots, the world is empty and dull, the story is unoriginal and unfinished, and the gameplay is just a mishmash of a bunch of ideas usually done much better in other titles. Yes, there are worse games, but I really am struggling to come up with many positives here. At the very least, this is nowhere near the mid-level game most others seem to agree that it is. I honestly don't get what these people could possibly see in this trash apart from nostalgia, as it really isn't just middling, it's bad. Really, really bad. If it looks at all intriguing to you, I urge you to check out Jak and Daxter, Ratchet & Clank, Crash Bandicoot, or even Treasure Planet or some such instead, as I guarantee you any and all of those options will give you roughly, if not exactly the same type of experience, but at a much, much higher and more enjoyable quality. Trust me, this one just isn't worth the risk. In conclusion, and to wrap things up here, I'll leave the final word about this game to Joshua and his very astute observation. Thanks for watching.
Strange game. The only winning move is not to play.